So, welcome to the Cosmic Powerhouse and another episode of Let's Create a Healing Temple Together, where we invite visionary leaders who really want to create change in the world, who really want to create a healthier world by honoring the soul and respecting the individual, and also aligned to the deep truths of the cosmos. And today we welcome Debra Ruh. Hello, Debra.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's such an honor. So she's a global inclusion and disability strategist and the CEO and founder of a huge NGO, which is Billion Strong, and also Global Ruh Impact. And of course, we are very curious about already the name Billion Strong. Where does it come from? What does it mean? And so I want to ask Debra first, what made you go on this journey about disability inclusion? So what is the story behind? Is there something personal you want to tell the audience to make it more clear?
Yeah, and I imagine anybody that has had a meaningful life journey probably has a lot of stories behind it. But I would say it started for me when my daughter was born with Down syndrome. And I had always wanted to have children. I always wanted to. I was one of those little girls that played with the Barbie dolls, and I don't know why, but I always wanted children. But I also grew up in a really troubled household, a lot of emotional abuse, sadly, a lot of physical and sexual abuse. My parents did their very best, but it was very intense growing up where I grew up. And I remember as a kid not understanding why the adults around me were so unhappy. And I remember being so, at one point, curious about why people were so unhappy, because, and I was a kid, but I remember doing this little experiment for a while, and I must have been like 7 or 8 years old, but I remember it. I remember I would smile at adults to see how many adults I could get to smile back. I'm a little kid smiling at adults. And I would tell you, most adults would smile back at me, but I remember consciously doing that. Obviously, I was a weird little kid, but I just really wondered what I should do to help the world. But even as a little kid, I felt that I was here to help. And then the universe blessed me when I was 28 years old with a beautiful, perfect baby girl. And when she was 4 months old, they told us she had Down syndrome, but we didn't know what that meant, my beautiful husband and I, but we were already in love with her. So give us labels, do what you want. And I'm not saying we didn't go through a lot of grief and a lot of, I had to reorder my mind. She'd already gotten married and had a bunch of kids, and the imaginations you have for your children. But that's really where the journey took a more important role, because I thought, all right, I'm going to dedicate my life to this beautiful baby with Down syndrome. And of course, then God and the universe stepped in and said, oh, by the way, here's a new baby, because I wound up giving birth to her brother when she was 15 months old, so that I couldn't dedicate my entire life to. I actually had to put in a little bit of a balance there. And then when she was in middle school, I started moving. I was in the banking industry for many years. I had been blessed to grow my career to a good point, but I just felt that I wanted to do more. So I moved into the disability inclusion and the accessibility field, making sure that technology is accessible to all of us. And I moved into that when my daughter reached middle school. So it continues to be an interesting journey because she's 37 years old now.
Wow. Oh, what a passion behind. We already can feel. So the topic of accessibility, did you see already changes right now? So I know you did a lot of consulting here. And so where's the area where it's missing most? Maybe still.
Well, I think the really beautiful part of this is, once again, my work sort of started my professional work of disability inclusion and figuring this all out. It started in 2000. And so a lot has happened since 2000. And the good news is we know how to make technology fully accessible. We know how to make all of our buildings, all of our transportation, all of our houses. We know how to make society completely accessible for all human beings, whether human beings can see, whether they can hear, whether they can move so good, whether they can think so good, because we're human beings, I believe. having a spiritual experience. But so the good news is we do know how to do this across society. The bad news is we don't do it. The bad news is we still are in a place in our world where we put in people in little categories and we decide, oh, you're not worthy because you're an American, or you're German, or you're a woman, or you're the wrong color, or you love the wrong person, or you can't see, or whatever we do to disempower each other. And so my work has really evolved over the years. At first, coming from a corporate background, what we would call corporate America. That's what we called it in the United States, corporate America, because everything revolves around corporations. And I, like so many others, really bought into, we can work with corporations and we can work together because corporations are nothing but people. But so for years, I really did. I really worked with corporations, tried to understand how do we do it? How do we make this a win for everybody? And I believe we've had a lot of progress, but at the same time, we also haven't had it progress like we should. And when things change and shift, which they do in the world, we see corporations not really focusing on this part of diversity because it's a part of diversity. People with disabilities are part of diversity. So are, and depending on where you live, in the United States, so are African Americans, are Black and brown people, so are LGBTQIA plus, so are, right, all these diverse groups. But what happens as everything shifts, the corporations might focus more on women, gender issues. Good, thank you. Of course, there are women with disabilities. There are women that are brown and Black with disabilities. So I think one thing, it's just become very complicated as we've broken ourselves into these little bitty pieces, understanding how we put it all back together and really honor each other. So it's a big identity question. It's a time when society, as we know, is already breaking down in a lot of ways. I think the opportunity for getting this better, maybe I can't say getting this right, but getting this better and understanding, especially when we're talking about it from a spiritual perspective, that us souls are coming here, having these experiences. We're deliberately having these experiences. And so maybe, we should really think what it truly means to be human, which is, I think, what a lot of my work has been about.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful framed.
Sorry for the long answer, but
that is totally okay. So it is, that's what I thought as well, thinking about that and knowing from my corporate experience also, where we have the diversity and inclusion teams, and in many corporate areas, we are calling that, right? And again, I was at the point where I was thinking about, why do we have that diverse group? Why do I really need a woman group? So sometimes I really was a bit critical. I know there's good reason also for doing so, but like you said, when we have too many different boxes, and I'm very sensitive to be put in a box, so because I'm following more, so there's one soul and we are all souls, and we should honor the soul completely. If they have one leg left or not, cannot see, cannot hear, it's souls. And the soul has so much more than the physical experience right now in this incarnation, in this world. And I know we are coming back to that, and it takes time. But I think it's maybe good to have both, right? To have the focus on specialized groups for good reason, to have more focus on that also in terms of support, but also to see it in context of the big family we are, right, in the cosmos.
And I think also what we really need to do, and this is a slippery slope, but we need to stop pitying people, right? And so we need to help people, but we don't need to pity people and decide that because, and I've had many personal experiences, as we all have. But when we realized my daughter had Down syndrome when she was 4 months old, I had peers that had also had babies, and the way they were treated as opposed to the way I was treated with my broken little baby girl, it really hurt my heart so very much, because I believed, and I still do, my daughter should be celebrated just like the babies that were born that didn't have a diagnosis. And so that made me sort of sad watching that happen. And I didn't want people to notice my daughter had Down syndrome. I don't want you to notice. well, but my daughter has Down syndrome. Right. And so, I mean, but we all have to walk our journeys and walk our grief path too. So I think I know that why we had to do it as human beings, we had to break us into little tiny pieces, I'm a woman, I'm over a certain age, I was born in the United States, I was born in the southern part of the United States, right, break us into all these little tiny pieces. I'm heterosexual, I am, we could talk about my religious preferences or not, right? So we can break us down into all these little things. But maybe it's time for us to put ourselves back together. And I, like you, have been on a spiritual journey for a really, really, really long time. Pretty much, as I mentioned, maybe starting as when I was a little kid. And as a toddler, I watched my mother try to commit suicide with a butcher knife, where she was stabbing herself. I and my older sister, who was 3, and my baby brother, who was 1, were standing at the glass plate window watching this while my parents were very distracted. And I just say that because some really bad stuff will happen to you sometimes, right? But are we souls having a human experience? I've been asking myself. That's what I believe. I think I have proof. I don't know, but I just think that, and of course, we're not allowed to talk about spirituality in these contexts. We're talking about corporations. We're talking about professional stuff. We can't be talking about universe and God and souls, right?
Yeah, because it's for most of the people, it's of course difficult. And when you go through the spiritual awakening process, it also takes time to understand. Most of it is non-physical, actually. You need to shift your mind and you see the world completely different. And as soon as you see a bit more, so what is going on in the non-physical world, step by step, you shift your consciousness and your belief system and can deal much easier with that. So, and also with the topic of death, of course, because you realize, okay, I'm a soul, I'm infinite soul. So I have my human experience right now. There's my movie right now where I play that Manuela Forster and doing this. And I create actually everything. I have to shortly say, so someone mentioned, did you realize that in your life, all the things which are showing up, the books, the stuff, the area, the environment, the people, you have created that.
Right. We're powerful creators.
That's why when we have an awakened consciousness, then we realize, and oh my God, that's weird. So I was thinking about that and now it's there. So when we come back to that, and it takes time because we need to go out of the conditioning, we need to deprogram, and it takes time. But it's so exciting. It's so exciting because you realize, my goodness, it's true. I'm creating this whole world.
But it's scary too. It's scary because I'm creating this whole world. So are you saying that I'm creating the problems that are in my world? Are you right? So you start getting into it, and it puts a lot of personal responsibility on you.
Absolutely.
And I was telling you before we came on air how much my spiritual practice, my beliefs, it has been changing dramatically as we've been going through this intense shift that we all know that we're going through. And part of and I think about this sometimes because I'm an older woman now, and I don't know that I'm call myself old because I think that's an interesting word that's been used another way to hurt us. But I also walked my beautiful husband and my mom to their deaths. I walked my husband. My husband had dementia due to a traumatic brain injury from a child accident, and I walked him to his death. And it was a beautiful, hard, horrifying, miraculous, beautiful experience. And boy, I learned a lot. And it was so hard. It was so hard. But my daughter with Down syndrome also participated, as did my beautiful son, who is a special education teacher and a great soul. Life really changes us a lot, but it feels like everything is speeded up and the way we process has changed. I was telling you a little bit about the universe is teaching me in ways that surprise me. And let me try to ground an example. I imagine a lot of your viewers will understand this, but in the United States, we just had a big election in the United States as we are recording this episode. And the political decisions my country made was not what I, as an individual voter, selected. But there were a whole lot of other Americans, including many of my family members, that did select the direction that we went in, which felt to me like we're just blowing everything up. But okay, all right. But at the same time, I remember waking up to the fact that my country had gone in a very different direction than what I had hoped we were going to go in. And I was devastated. I was so upset. And I have a very large presence on social media, but I couldn't do social media that day. I just couldn't do it. And I remember spending the day processing and crying and really allowing myself to process. But something that surprised me was I processed it so much faster than I would have in the past. In the past, I just don't think I could have gotten over it anytime soon. But I actually processed it almost in like one major day, which surprised me. And then I just felt better. And I thought, okay, one thing that's happening, the universe, I think, is giving us tools to speed up the process of understanding. I don't know how to explain it, but I will say that's one reason why we need you, right? Because I have been dedicated spiritual follower. I haven't gone to India or some of the things people do. I haven't done that, but I have been a spiritual warrior for so many years. But it gets very confusing doing it by yourself, and it's helpful to have a guide along the way, a coach along the way. And there's a lot of very powerful things happening with our spiritual leaders and who I follow on YouTube or wherever I'm getting my data. And I'll tell you something that I'm noticing, and I would say to the audience, is you are on your spiritual journey as you choose a spiritual coach, or there's so many ways that we need to do this. There's times when coaches are invaluable to us. There's times when it's okay. I have enough data. I can get it myself, or maybe I need an online therapist. There's so many different ways to do it. But I'm starting to notice something that I'm hearing others speak about that I want to make sure your audience thinks about as well, in that you have to think about how your coaches and your spiritual leaders speak themselves. What are they saying? How are they navigating their lives? How are they interviewing people? You can tell the energy that people are putting out. And if they're out there and they're talking, even if they're enlightened and you can tell they're great people, but it's all about fear. Because even now I see our spiritual leaders, some of them speaking way too much fear. And it's like fearful spiritually. So it's like a spiritual leader made a comment, a lot of souls are going to leave in December. Well, that got really stuck in my head, and it doesn't help me navigate the fears that I'm experiencing, the fears that we talked about. I have a global workforce, and some of my team are in Syria, for example, or in other parts of the Middle East. And there's really scary what these souls are walking and experiencing, even though maybe from what we believe, that soul made a decision to walk that, and I need to not judge that soul. So I would just say something to the audience, in that as we're all walking these intense times, make sure that you're following people and getting advice from people that you can tell are also living their lives in enlightened ways. Are the leaders speaking in a way that makes you feel good about the possibilities of what's happening? Or do they make you feel more afraid? And if they make you feel more afraid, they're not the right teacher. They're not the right coach for you. So I just want to say that, because I'm really surprised at what some of the leaders are saying. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Yeah. Are you tapping into the fears, using it as a white label? So, and I think another thing I would say, and I would love for you to comment on this stuff too, is right now, I think it's more important than ever before to find your tribe and find people where their energy speaks to your energy, because we've been taught this many, many times, but what we put out is what we draw back. And that's such a hard thing to say. We are the creators. What if we were the most powerful creator in the universe? How frightening could that be? How terrifying. Oh, it should be empowering, Debra. No, maybe I need somebody else in charge and I can relax and let somebody else take care of everything. So
Thank you so much. Yeah, that is very, very good point. And actually, that is also why we have in the show, and I have to say I forgot it, just honestly, but it's a right point to demonstrate that we create safe space. And that is also the point what you mentioned, because of the spiritual leaders who might not be in the high vibrational energy. So they are good and what they are talking about, but it's also it's all about energy. What energy I'm in and send out with my words and so on. And everything we do.
And my thoughts.
The thoughts. And so that's why I create safe space, and I put my hands in front and I create a bubble around myself that is for the audience to know. So it's really our soul bubble, like a golden bubble, you can imagine. And then I put, when I do my meetings or right here in the podcast show, I put it over our space, and that also works virtually. So it's creating a safe space with high vibrational energy. And you can only be in a high vibrational energy when you're really practicing daily. To keep that energy level high, the frequency level high, you need to do your meditation or your spiritual practice. Because of course, with all the outside influence, only talking about media and social media, so it is pulling you down. So you need to learn about your ability to bring your energy or your frequency high again. There's a scale, it's very famous, from David Hawkins, demonstrating that when we are in fear, in anger, it's very low vibrational. Yes. And like you were talking about fear, so it's low vibrational, also whatever person I am. But if I'm in love, unconditional love, then it's about 400-500 vibrations, say. So it's really a difference. And that is why it is so important to really connect to your heart space, to really be in coherence, heart and brain. And that is very important for all of us, and especially also for leaders. So when we are talking, or when we are in our corporation, our company, talking to the audience, to the people, to the employees, no matter what we're doing, it's always a good thing to really be grounded. And that's why we have the grounding exercises, where we have deep breath into the earth, in through the nose and out into the ground, and really imagine a tree to ground roots into the earth. And if you're only doing these simple things, you can already feel like you go out of your mind and your crazy carousel of thoughts, and really feel more grounded with that. Like Debra said, there are so many people around who can help you, guide you, guided meditations, guided practices. So it's really valuable to look into that, to go out of this mind stress and really go into feeling, because that is so needed in the world, to go back into our feeling and not only thinking. So, and out of the doing and more in the being.
Right. So somebody said something, as a matter of fact, Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks, that work. Esther said something to me, not to me, I mean, to all of us, because I've never met Esther Hicks, but I love the work. And one thing that she reminds us is, and other leaders remind us as well, sometimes the highest frequency that you can get is a lower one. You know, the best I can do at this moment is just not be totally hysterical. Allowing yourself to understand we can't always be in the highest of vibrations. We are still limited in these human bodies deliberately. As souls, we came and said, all right, sure, I'll do that. And we remember we all fought to be here during these changing times. Yeah.
But it's our decision, actually. I heard
it was we fought to be here. No, I want to come. All right. But the presence of now, and of course there's, I'm totally blanking on the wonderful German man that wrote about the power of now. Anyway, and he also might not be German, but he's really amazing. But knowing one thing also that helps me a lot is when I'm getting really scared, and sometimes I'm terrified. There's been some really scary things happening, not to me, but the people that I love and know around the world. But the power of now, the presence, going right, because if you're really terrified, sometimes if you can get to that point, which we all can, where you're calm enough to go, all right, wait. why am I so terrified right now? Is it that and once again, I'm projecting what's going to happen in the future, or for some reason, am I in the past going, yeah, I know, but remember when you were a little kid? Yeah. So always coming back to the present moment and giving ourselves a break. If you cannot reach the highest vibration, if the best you can do, so it's a scale and it's always shifting up and down. So, but remembering we are creators. And I know Marianne Williamson she has stated that, what if you are so powerful? You're in the most creative, creator, powerful. I think that's what we're afraid of. Yeah. Well, what do you mean? Are you saying that? Because I said this one time to a friend and he said, are you saying, oh, how convenient. You said that Sarah just decided to be born with Down syndrome. And I said, yeah, I understand how that seems like I'm wrapping the bow up real tight and everything is a beautiful little package, but I do believe that my daughter, Sarah, made a decision as a soul to come and have Down syndrome. And I believe she did it as a gift to me to challenge me and help me grow, and her brother and her father and herself. But no, I absolutely do believe that we decide who we're going to come and the big problems that we're going to try to tackle during the lifetime. I think there is destiny and fate and all that stuff, but I believe we are creators, and what we focus on is what we're pulling right back to us. And I'll tell you, I hadn't figured it out. I haven't. Something that I've really struggled with in my work for years, which I find fascinating, is lack of funding, not having proper funding to do the work I want to do, even though I'm doing it anyway. I find that sometimes I see somebody else get funding and I feel a little jealous. I remember feeling that jealousy energy for a group that I'm on the board of directors for, and they got a big funding they got this huge funding. And I remember at first thinking, well, why can't I get that funding? And then I was like, it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay to feel that way. But at the same time, aren't you super happy for them? I am. I am so happy for them.
But what actually is the reason? So talking more about Billion Strong. So first of all, where does the name come from? And second, also disability, the topic. So tell us more about the challenges because you're just mentioning the funding.
Well, it's the work that I've been doing for years, disability, inclusion, and accessibility. It's not very sexy work. It's like, oh, she's so sweet. Oh, I love what she's doing. But it's not sexy work. So it's not work that is typically getting funded. And with disability inclusion, there are over 1 billion. We know for sure there's 1.7 billion people. We think those numbers are very low. The reason why that's the best we can calculate as human beings, because not all countries do census bureaus. Not all countries decide what it means to have a disability in the same way. The definition for having a disability is different in the United States than it is in the rest of the world, for example.
Yeah, that was also what I was wondering. So what does it mean, actually? So disability, what is covered with disability? Because like we said, sometimes we are diverse people. So what is a disability and what is,
Well, I cannot clearly answer that question. I can answer that question from different lenses. I can tell you what that means in the United States, but it doesn't mean the same thing in Germany. And it doesn't mean the same thing in Bangladesh or Australia or Guyana. So, but in the United States, we have put so many people in our description of disability that according to our CDC, 1 in 4 adult Americans identify as having a disability. That's 25% of our 1 in 4. And that's according to the CDC, which is, and we think those numbers are probably higher. But for example, here in the United States, we include somebody that is a little person, which is the terminology that community prefers. Dwarfism is a type. There's others. There's different reasons why a person might be a little person. But for example, Singapore, you are not protected in Singapore if you're a little person. So it sort of depends. Here in the United States, we've included morbid obesity, which can definitely cause major disability issues, but that is not recognized in other countries. We have a lot of obesity problems in the United States. Anyway, so It gets confusing, and also we are always adding more people to our community. We are now very actively involved in neurodiversity, which I am a person that's neurodiverse. I was diagnosed in my 50s of having ADHD, which I'm joined by about 65% of other entrepreneurs. And also a lot of entrepreneurs have dyslexia, very common, because a lot of people with that are entrepreneurs, they don't think the same way as the rest of the community.
And then we come back to the question, what is actually,
what is it mean? Right.
It's just, for me, it's not so, as a very cosmic connected person.
Right.
I'm very
why are we failing at this? That's part of the reason why. And then we have the cancel culture, and then we have the attack on woke and DI, diversity, equity, inclusion, NA, accessibility. So
and then when we are in a spiritual awakening, we have hard times to come back to, I'm just part of everything. So,
right. So why are you making me
divine love? So in an energy.
That is why I created billion-strong.org. And it's a cheeky, how dare I even try to bring together a billion people? That's ridiculous, especially a billion people that have been told they are disabled because of their past lives. They're disabled because their families did something wrong in a past life. They're disabled because, why so ridiculous? If you're somebody that is an albino, there are, dark magic, voodoo and stuff that believe that you have special blood and that it can be used in really dark, powerful, horrible, magic spells. And so we hurt people that were born, with less pigment. So I think, honestly, that is why I did billion-strong.org. I'm trying to bring the community together with pride and empowerment but it is a spiritual exercise as well, because our community does not speak in any way in a strong voice. Our community, we don't celebrate our successes. We just had our 200th year of Braille. There was hardly anything talked about it on social media at all. And it's such a sad thing because millions of people have benefited from Braille. And so I don't think the way forward is continuing to break us down into little tiny identities. I think the only way forward is for us to take the knowledge that we have and make sure all people are included. So instead of making billions of people fight for their rights, we know how to make education fully accessible to all types of people, all learning types, whether you can see, you can't see, you can partially see. We know how to do all this. We have the data. We have all of the skills. We know how to make technology good, technology for all, technology for good, AI for good. We just have to have the will to do it. So what Ruh Global has been doing, my for-profit social enterprise, is we work with the largest of the projects in the world, smart city projects, metaverses, digital inclusion, and we're making sure that all of the principles that we know as a human race are adopted, so that then I don't have to come and tell you I'm blind, because everything works for me anyway, because we have technology that helps with that. I don't have to tell you I use a wheelchair, because there are no steps in a way that's going to prevent me and my family from going into the building and, say, dining together. I'm going to be able to travel. I'll be able to be on a cruise ship. I'll be able to fly on an airplane, and you won't ruin my wheelchair, which we've caused people to die because their wheelchairs were damaged so bad on the airplane, and it caused these problems that happen, and people have died because of it. So I think as we're rethinking what it means to be human, and I believe we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we need to bring these spiritual conversations back in to all of the work that's being done, and we need to collaborate, and we need to not do anything that hurts the living planet we're on. So I don't know, can we come back to some sanity and just say, please stop hurting each other?
See what's happening with the wars and conflicts, military conflicts right now. When we look at this, where people from childhood on are now disabled, because of all the injuries are going on.
It's horrible. And what we're doing to human beings, what human beings are doing to human beings is chilling. And I just am not going to I'm just in one of those souls like you. I'm just not going to sit back and do nothing. So I hope that your audience is tapping into their soul to who they are. And I was listening to you as you were saying the different things we can do. There's so many different practices that we can do. Coming back
but
to
the most important is really, like you say, to really go on this path, be curious. Who are you? Why are you here? What is your purpose? Everyone came here with a purpose. So what is your soul mission? What is in your family? Maybe a pattern which showing up, and you are called, you are the one who is called right now to step into something else. Well, to solve problems, to bring up solutions, future innovation, whatever.
I agree. I heard something one time about passion. Maybe I was blessed at very quickly understanding where my passion was, understanding it at 28 years old, knowing I wanted to help, knowing how I could make a difference. But one of my real favorite author, Elizabeth Gilbert, she wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And she's also written some other really powerful books. One of them, it has magic in the title, which is a beautiful book. But she said something one time that spoke so much to me, especially as a creator, we are all creators, but somebody that really identifies as being a creator. But she said something that she did a speech, and she has a very large following, and she was talking about your purpose and passion and applying it. And this woman wrote a note on Facebook that Elizabeth saw, and she said, I listen to you and I'm so excited for you. I love your work and everything, but I feel broken because everybody else seems to know what their passion is and I don't know. And she said, after listening to you, it almost discouraged me because I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what my purpose is. And Elizabeth said, that's so powerful because we forget these things, right? Because I got it because I got clues and I'm like, oh, I think the universe is telling me I need to help people with disabilities. Oh, I'm a person with disability myself. I have a history of it. I have a family. Okay. But I just thought that was such a good point. And so if anybody is listening and you're saying, wait a minute, I would say this to you. Your soul does give you clues. It does give you clues because you shouldn't try to help fix things that you're not passionate about. But what are you passionate about? Are you passionate about the way we eat? Are you passionate about making sure our planet's okay? Are you passionate about animals? Do you love little kids? Do you love working with elderly? Are you concerned about the drinking water? Because, our drinking water is, what about the plastic? There's plastic. What about the sea animal? What about the, whales? Do you love whale? The really beautiful thing about it is the soul connects us to the things we're passionate about because we like them. So take the time to just be calm, as you had said, and do your bubble. But what makes you excited? What makes you want to explore something? That is how you figure out what your passion is. And I also want to just say one more thing that a spiritual teacher recently said to me that was talking about how some spiritual leaders are being too negative. But they said something that I felt was very powerful for me. And they said, who are you right now? Are you a creator? Because we just said everybody's creators. Or are you a consumer? Now, I live in the United States. We do a lot of consuming in the United States. We're all consuming social media. We're consuming, hopefully you're consuming the podcast that we're doing right now. But as you're consuming this, we are both creating this, right? So the spiritual leader said, and his name is RJ. I forget his last name, but he's relatively new to me, his work. But he said, we need to create more and consume less, even of spiritual work, even of spiritual leaders, create more, consume less. And I just thought, for me at least, that was a very powerful comment, because maybe I do need to create more and consume less. Especially one more comment, because I want to turn this over to you to talk about. I found that sometimes I wake up always in the middle of the night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. And something I was doing was I was reaching for my phone, which I'm holding up in the air for those of you that can see it. And I was listening to spiritual leaders, but sometimes I was finding I was getting very anxious depending on the topic, and it was making my sleep worse. And so what I've started doing in the last week only a week, is I will not allow myself to do that. So what I do is I wake up and I honor that I've woken up and I know the universe is speaking to me. And then what I do is because meditation is also an interesting word, because not everybody can meditate, especially if you're like me with ADHD in the same ways. But what I do is I surround myself with light and I'm calm and I try to create during those times. And I try to ask the universe, how can I create better? And I think the technology is so beautiful and so powerful and given us so much. And I love working with AI and enhancing my messages. But there are times when we need to put the technology down and we need to be quiet. Maybe you can't sit and meditate and do it. All you do is you just lay and you're calm or you sit. But I'm being told to create more and to consume less in every sense of that word. And I was just wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I can't be the only person my soul is telling me to do that.
Very good point, Debra. No, yeah, that is actually the point, because it's all about distraction, right? And the whole world was set up in the many years to distract us, to get us caught. So we are talking about hooks when we're doing social media work. So how can we get someone into our stuff to read that, to listen to that? So yeah, and it is, like we said before, it's your responsibility as a human and a soul to stop that at least for a moment and say, okay, I put my phone away, it's on silent mode, and I give myself at least 15 minutes where I'm just in my space, in a safe space. I go within. And meditation, yeah, many people see it as more difficult, but actually meditation starts by sitting down and listen to your breathing or just to your heartbeat, and just bring your focus on your heart space and try to listen to your heartbeat and have a deep breath. And that starts. So, because I hear people saying, yeah, meditation, they have so much expectation already and fear that they cannot do it, and I cannot have no thought. Well, many of us cannot. Also for me, it's always challenging. So, but I learned from a very good meditation teacher. So you see it like, there's one thought coming to the front door in, saying hello.
Don't stop it.
Invite that thought for a cup of tea or coffee. You just say hello and move it on to the back door.
And will you explain that a little bit? I finally understood that, but it took me a while to understand what they even meant by that. So it's like
you accept
a thought
that
comes
thoughts are
across.
Yeah, you accept that. You don't try to. I don't have to think. I should not think. I should not think.
You're good, right? The thoughts are coming.
Exactly. And also the noise. So if you're somewhere, maybe you hear some car or whatever, you recognize it, you just look at it, but you don't pick on that. You just let it flow. So
you don't say, hey, I wonder what that car is. I wonder what the color is. I wonder who's driving that car. Are they listening to music in that? You just say, car went by. I'm calm. What else would you like me to do?
It's not important. The important thing at the moment is me, my soul, my peace. And it is like you say, so it is training a little bit. So it starts where you are wanting to know what's going on, and you cannot just leave it that way. And after some time, you can it more and more. And it's really a relief. It's really so peaceful when you can do it. So when I'm at an airport or at a train station where it's very busy, I can sit there and there's whole noise around. And I just sit there, close my eyes, I deep breathe into the earth. I don't care if there's someone. And I'm at peace.
Oh, it's the best thing. And I would also say when grounding.
And the interesting thing is the whole surrounding is at peace at some points.
I know, because we all read energy, whether we know it or not. People don't realize it, but you read energy all the time. Yeah. You're picking up when you're like, no, they just were weird, or they seem to be in a bad mood. You're picking up their energy. You're picking up their energy. We're all energy readers.
They're affected. And that is what also, of course, needs to be understood. And it takes some time It is contagious. We are interacting all the time. There is no barrier or something. So it's all energy. And of course, it's challenging to come to that realization that it's all particle flow and it's materializing. But just at the point starting, it's energy, and you affect others, and you are affected by the energy field, which is very important. When you try to go a different way, at some point you also need to decide where you really go to. So which places you go to, or which peer group. So if there's a lot of stress, anger, and so on, and you want to have a different life, you need to make decisions if you really stay on that. But coming back to the point of disability and seeing disability not so much as a limitation, but really as the opportunity for growth and so on, because we were speaking a lot about that again and again. I wanted to pick up that again, because I think it's a really important point for society and also the corporation, so that we see the potential in it, and that we see the soul when we see it from a spiritual level, and all the beautiful gifts someone brings in. Also, they might not have 2 legs, but only one, or they have some kind of disability, but they have this soul gift and this soul power. And I can imagine that someone who has disabilities, I have a friend who has very bad vision, and I say, see it as an opportunity, or see it as a huge strength, because you're so much more sensitive. You can sense people much more powerful, because you cannot see like us, right? So
right, yeah, and you know what, you bring up a really good point, because it's funny, it's a slippery slope at the same time, because one thing that happens with people with disabilities is sometimes we do what we have a terminology for it. It's called inspirational porn. And people look at somebody with a disability and they're like, oh, wow, I can't believe you're working. I can't believe you're married. Wow, you got married even though you're a quadriplegic. And so it's sometimes what's interesting is I'd like to meet a soul, because I don't think it's possible, that's incarnated as a human, that isn't walking something. So it's like we have a tendency to, and we saw this with the Paralympics, because the Paralympic athletes are the best athletes in the world. They just might also happen to not have a leg, or they don't see, but these are athletes. You don't get to the Paralympics unless you're the best of the best. And so one thing that we're trying to do is get people to think about this differently. Once again, what does it mean to be human? And yes, somebody that the soul decided to be born blind for a lot of different reasons, or the soul decided to have Down syndrome, or the soul decided to have ADHD or autism or whatever, or the soul decided, I'm going to do this later in life. My husband was not born with a traumatic brain injury. My husband was hit by a car, by a drunk driver, when he was crossing the road because he just got his kite going well, and he stepped in front of a car. The young driver had been drinking at 10:30 in the morning, couldn't stop, killed my husband. He came back. His brain was terribly traumatized, but he went on to grow up, get married, have 2 beautiful children, but dementia came for his brain. That was his soul's path. And obviously, the soul that hit him was connected to his soul somehow, right? So beautiful, but at the same time, I think we have, once again, we know as society how to make things fully accessible so everybody can participate, so people can be educated, they can work. And the good news about hiring people with disabilities for you as an employer is we're always concerned in corporations, or, it's not just corporations, but in the workforce. One thing we all have to do is solve problems in the workforce. We have to solve problems. We have customers, maybe we have to take care of. We have products. We're problem solvers. Well, people with disabilities are naturally born problem solvers because society does not include us. So you want to be innovative, hire somebody that's blind, hire somebody that's deaf, hire somebody that, doesn't, walk in the same way. Maybe they use a tool like a wheelchair, or maybe they use a cane. Hire people that have had these life experiences because they're problem solvers, because they have no choice, because society makes you solve problems all day long. really
That's an
ridiculous
excellent
problem.
point. I can imagine that not many people come across that. No?
Right. And it's so logical when you say it.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to disrupt the disability inclusion field by saying these things, because if we keep trying to do it this way, then the women are competing with the LGBT or competing with the what? And employers can't get it right because they can never figure out where the moving bar is. But we know how to make technology accessible. Why are we building anything that's not accessible to all humans? And why are we building anything that hurts our planet or the other earthlings on our planet? To me, it's all the same thing. As we rethink society, let's stop deciding some people they don't deserve to be included because whatever reason. And, and also technology is an enabler. And technology can be such a beautiful thing, but technology really cannot work well without humans. It just really can't. And AI, oh my God, I love AI, and AI is going to solve a lot of problems we have with inclusion of people with disabilities. But at the same time, we can't be programming in conscious and unconscious bias into our artificial intelligence, which we're doing. We're consciously biasing our artificial intelligence against women and other diverse groups. Right now, we're programming this. So it's an opportunity for us to do better, but I believe it's all the same thing. The spirituality, why are we talking about spirituality? We're talking about corporate things. We're talking about, well, you just cannot. The only way forward is by bringing all of this together. And we have got to know who we are as souls and what matters to us and what matters to us for the planet, for true inclusion. Does it matter to you that families are getting hurt? Does it matter to you that during wartime we chop off people's arms and legs so they can't fight us? Does this matter to you as a human soul? Once again, lots to do, lots to do.
Do you have a specific call to action to leaders? So something what you really can and want to address to the leaders and the audience here?
Yes. And I will say thank you so much for your show. I'm so excited about what's happening on your show. And I know it's new and unfolding. And I'm very, very pleased to be here. And I look forward to talking to you in 5 years to seeing what you're going to do with this. But I would say you had graciously asked me to talk about my work, and then I don't do it. But billion-strong.org. The reason why I created billion-strong.org was because, and it was happening when my husband was actively dying. And so was because I believe that if the community of people with disabilities are not discoverable and that we don't convene and come together to support and empower each other, we're going to continue to be left out. And so, but I think it's also our community that needs to be talking about these really big problems. Why are we not being included in the workforce? Is our definition of disability too broad? How do we talk about, what is the right language? Are we people with disabilities? Are we people of determination? Are we disability confident? We don't even have our language figured out. So one thing that your audience could do is join this. It's a free movement, and I need everybody, whether you have lived experience with disabilities or you just know somebody with disabilities, to join this free movement. We use hashtag #WeAreBillionStrong, and the website is www.billion-strong.org. I could have gotten Billion Strong, but they wanted $6,000 for it, which is a stupid way to use money. So there's a dash. But the reason
we
why
will also deliver the contact link and so on with this episode, that people can reach out to you more easily, right?
Yes, but we need the numbers. We need people just to join our website, join us as global advisors. If you know anybody with lived experience with disabilities, we need to get together and we need to rethink how we include ourselves, how we include our community, how we make sure other diverse communities are meaningfully included. We see that, sadly, if you're a woman, if you identify as a woman, if you're a white woman, you get paid more than women that are dark and brown and black skinned. It's so ridiculous. If you're a woman with disabilities, you get paid the least. Okay. So the hierarchy within the gender, the hierarchy within LGBTQIA.
It sounds for me, Debra, also that HR, of course, need maybe to go through of all of that again.
Well, and they're doing
strengths, right? And not the risk for the company, but the strengths and the potential to have this.
And they are trying. They are. There's so many people trying. I just think it's stacked against us as long as we keep doing it like this. But right now, this is the way we're doing it. This way we've got to do it. This is the way we know how to do it. But I believe, once again, we know how to solve these problems. We just, for some reason, are choosing not to. And so I think as we solve all the things we're trying to solve, this is the way that I just do it, is we acknowledge our humanness. We acknowledge that we are great spiritual creators. And we try to make a difference in whatever part of the world that speaks to your heart and soul.
Thank you so much
to do it otherwise.
Your passion and the movement you created is so important in the world. And we heard about the numbers, more than 1 billion. It's unimaginable. So it's a big number. So thank you so much for all your work. And yeah, like we experienced you today, is also you have still a lot of energy. So by all what you're doing. So is there some kind of specific recipe you want to tell the audience how to get this energy level?
Well, and I will also say that something I didn't talk about much, but I certainly am impacted, is that we're an aging society. Societies are aging dramatically all over the world, even in the Middle East and in Africa, where we have younger populations. We still have a major issue that's happening with the aging of the world. And as people age, they get to the point where they can't work. And so younger parts of society takes care of our older people. I mean, that's the way we've set society up. But what's happening is, so as people are aging, they're aging into disabilities, which is very common. So the numbers of people with disabilities and the needs are rising dramatically, just as we walk these really intense times. But I think the way we do it, once again, is we try to find our purpose. We try to find out how we can help. We find our coaches, like the work you're doing, and we get help along the way. But I will continue to say a lesson that I've recently learned: if a leader that you are tracking and following and learning from is putting out information that's making you afraid, I don't think they're the right leader to be tracking right now. And stay away from the fear-based things. Stay away from, I was talking to a woman in the United States that she was talking about, well, it's always on in the background, and it's always on in the background, and I hear it, but I don't pay attention to it. And I was confused about what she meant. And I said, what is always on in the background? And she said, oh, I have Fox News playing real loud in the background all day long. And I said, oh, please don't do that. Please turn that off. And she's like, what? You don't like Fox? I said, no. Don't let any news channel or media be running all day long on tracks.
Programming, right? Because we are sucking it like a
sponge.
It is always. So what people are not aware, that we are constantly taking in information. That's all data. And that is our receiver here, which is our brain, is constantly taking this on, constantly.
Yes, right. And so I'm just saying, I'm not saying don't go and listen to those channels. Yeah. I'm saying be deliberate about it, conscious about it. So on that note, I think, I'm older than a lot of your audience, I'm sure, but I still am learning every single day. And I know that we need leaders like you to help us, because it's very confusing. But once again, I think let the energy be your guide. And if something is happening and you're fearful, take a minute to center yourself and try to figure out what your soul's telling you, but maybe be more of a creator and less of a consumer in those situations.
Thank you. And never forget, maybe it's also possible to reverse aging. So I experienced that.
I agree.
Since I have the high vibrational level, I'm surprised.
I agree.
Oh my God, I don't know how that can happen. I was working so much and I don't see it.
Well, see, I think that we are the reason why we age so. Everything's changing. I'm in my 60s. I'm so healthy. I don't, I do yoga all the time because I feel like I need to stretch more, but I'm not taking any prescription medications. I'm just so blessed with good health. But I do eat right and I try to be conscious, but something is happening. I don't think
that's what I wanted to say. It is possible.
Something is shifting.
It is possible. It
is absolutely possible. I agree. And I'm not afraid of death at all. And I'm not afraid of getting older. I don't mind getting older. And I'm trying to figure out, what do I do with getting older? But I had purple streaks in my hair for a long time. And I'm only because I denied. You don't get to decide if I'm old or not. But It's a beautiful, powerful time to be alive, and scary and fabulous.
Maybe
But
last question, Debra. So your contributions, how want you to be remembered then? Is there any thought about
well,
and all your work? So
it's interesting because I'm bad about talking about my work. I'm bad about bragging about myself. And I'll say, oh, just Google me because it's sort of embarrassing, the accolades I've gotten. But that's also a woman thing, and we're bad about that. But I really just think that people would, think that I was kind, and that I could, I think, I just try to help people think differently. Certainly think beyond your border. Once again, I live in the United States. We're bad about thinking just about ourselves. Think outside your border. So somebody called me a term the other day that just, I was so honored, a luminary. And I thought, I don't know if I'm a luminary, but I love that term because it's light. It's about the light. So I don't even know if I care if I'm remembered. Is that terrible? I think I want the impact felt more than whether people remember Debra Ruh. Because I'm just, a drop in the bucket like all the rest of us, right? So, but I do want us to learn these lessons. I don't want me to come back here again and we're still doing the same thing now.
good point. Yeah, and I heard legacy is not that you have this status symbol or this or that. Legacy is more who you are, who you show up in the world, and yeah, how you go through life and what you're doing. And of course, it's brilliant when you have a strong focus on something to have more impact. And so thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you and talking about spirituality a lot and but also about the situation in the area of disability and inclusion. So I think it's so important to talk about that these days and give more insight. And I hope our dear audience got a lot of insights from today's session. And I will take my energy back, so closing the safe space, it's called. So, and I hope you will follow us and also watch the next episode. Thank you again, Debra.
Yes, and can I ask you a quick question before you end? Yes. Aren't you available also for coaching?
Yes,
and so
I'm a spirituality mentor and coach and a master practitioner of energy medicine. So a modern day shaman somewhat.
Yes, I love shamans. I love the energy of shamans. So it's just good for your audience to know that they can reach out to you for those resources.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Debra. Thank you.